Plants can't live without sunlight. Take away the sunlight, they die. It's a simple equation. Hey, it's Greg here with maritimegardening.com, and I got a weedy garden here. This is parsnips, and they've got every kind of weed you could imagine growing in between the rows. This is not mulch at this point in time, and I'm going to show you an easy way to deal with all of that. I'm out here in the morning and got about 10 minutes to deal with this problem, and I'm going to deal with this whole bed in 10 minutes. Okay, it's not going to be perfect, but basically I'm going to take out about 90% of the weeds in a very short amount of time, and I'll explain my process here. So traditionally, you know, for something like this, you would be told to take a hoe and just scrape along, right, like that. Right, and just work your way along parallel to the rows of vegetables. Doing that sort of thing. This has to be pulled here. This is a mustard weed, which they're good eating, delicious weed, but I don't want them growing here with my parsnips. Anyway, traditionally you'd be told to do this approach, right? Which works. But what the problem with that approach is that the weeds are just going to come back. I mean, all you're doing is disturbing the soil. I mean, garden soil is basically a seed receptacle, right? There's seeds flying through the air all over the place, and they land in your garden. There's birds that land in your garden, look for birds, they're pooping out seeds. Especially me, where I mulch everything with whatever I can find. All my mulch is full of weed seeds. It's called a seed bank, right? All soil everywhere, unless you're in some sort of unbelievably destroyed place, is full of seeds, right? And that's why if you till something up and just wait, things just start growing like crazy, right? So if you create the conditions where seeds are going to germinate and grow, that's what they're going to do because they're there. It's not like by letting the weeds grow and then hoeing them like that, you've basically germinated every weed seed in the soil and you're done. No, all we've done was restart the process. So what you're going to do is take something out of the equation that you know, the seeds have certain things they need to grow, and you got to remove something out of that equation. You don't want to remove, they need basically nutrients in the soil, water, and sun. Well, you don't want to remove the nutrients from the soil because your plants need it. You don't want to dry out the soil because your plants need the soil to be wet, moist. So you take the sun out of the equation, okay? And all you do is just take these big leaf bags. You know, every fall and every spring, people put leaf bags out full of leaves. I stick them in the back of my car and take them home and use them in my garden. But I also use the leaf bags. Everything's get used in my garden. Even to hold these leaf bags down, you gotta say, don't they blow away? Well, I just use old pieces of wood from, you know, old garden boxes and stuff like that. Everything gets used in my garden, nothing goes to waste, right? Even the garden boxes eventually end up being soil again. So, just a quick, I'm gonna zoom the camera out a bit here. Quick tips on how to cut these up. I'm far enough away here. There's different ways to do this, and I mean, I found this is the best thing to do in the winter over a workbench with, you know, a nice straight, you know, straight edge for cutting and stuff like that. But I don't always get around to doing it. So you just find a nice straight line down the side with a good pair of scissors. Make sure you get as much of the dirt and crap off the bag as you can, because it'll just dull your scissors. Go down a straight line for the bottom, and the bottom's sort of like a rectangle, right? So you just cut that rectangle out. Well, I feel like one of those kids shows like Mr. Rogers, you know. Make sure you get your parents to help you with the scissors if they're sharp. Anyway, it's like the closest thing to doing crafts that I do these days. So just cut that off. These things are, these leaf bags are double ply. If you do all of this when the leaf bags are relatively new, it's easier. Anyway, now I've got a big rectangle, right? And all I'm just doing is cutting long, skinny rectangles that are approximately the the width of the space between my rows. It's okay to, you might want to err on the narrow side of that. You want to get it as close as you can. Now, while I'm cutting this up, I'll explain another method that works and why you may or may not want to do it. So another way to do this is to put these down before you sow the seeds. Okay, that's another way to do it, and it works. As with everything, there's pros and cons. When you put them down before you sow the seeds, one advantage of doing it this way is that now, in addition to this cardboard that my worms and stuff are going to eat, all those weeds are going to die. And they're all going to become worm food, slug food, microorganism food, right? They're all going to get fungi food, right? They're all going to be broken down by the soil organisms. Eventually, all those things are going to be fertilizer, right? So by letting them grow a little bit, I've basically allowed those seeds to germinate, capture energy from the sun, store it up in the body of the weed. Now I'm going to kill the weed, and all that energy is going to go back into my soil system and all the nutrients associated with it, right? So it's better in that sense, right? So, and I suppose if you're growing something that's prone to, vulnerable to slug damage, I don't find parsnips to be particularly vulnerable to slug damage, but if you are, there's an argument for leaving the mulch off till the plants are a reasonable size. And a lot of proponents of no-till gardening will say just move the mulch aside and plant between it, and I've done that in the past, and it works for some things. But for some kind of plants that are vulnerable to slugs, the mulched bed is all my beds, they're not all mulched right now, but they all will be over the course of the season. A mulch bed is an ideal environment for a slug. They love it. There's lots of food there, and it's easy to hide, right? So they just hide under the mulch and do whatever they do during the day, and then they come out of it at night and, just eat your beans to the ground or whatever, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a catch-22, and you have to decide what's important to you. Also make decisions based on the time of year, because some pests are more prevalent depending on the time of year. All right, we got that all done up here. So now it's just a question of getting these on the bed. These are all double ply, but I like to use 2 layers. Another reason for doing it this time of year, so it's like the beginning of June, is that these should last a good month or so. If you put these down, like I sowed these like the first week of April, if you put these down then, they're almost broken down by some point in June, right? They break down in about a month or 2, all things being equal, give or take, right? But yeah, now all I have to do is just lay them down adjacent to the row, right? So it's pretty quick, right? I'm taking the sun out of the equation, and you just put something on top of them like that, right? This is pretty quick weeding, and that's important for me because there's black flies everywhere this time of year, and there's nothing worse than being out in the garden getting eaten alive by flies. But see, that's pretty quick weeding, right? Now you got to put some stuff on top of it like I'm doing here just to keep it from blowing away, right? And, over time you're going to have some weeds pop up in between, right, where the plants are growing. You just pick those out meticulously as you go, sort of thing. I don't bother with them right now. At some point I have to thin these parsnips out. And when I thin them out, I'll deal with whatever weeds is in them. I basically do the 2 things at once, right? So let's turn some fast music on and do the rest of this. It won't take long at all. There we go. Didn't take long, right? Now I've basically wiped out my weeds, most of them. Most of those weeds, some of them will find their way out around, but the vast majority of them will die for lack of sunlight, right? Just starved of sunlight. They'll break down, they'll get eaten by the soil organisms. Those weeds will become fertilizer for my plants. Also, because I've got that paper there, the soil is not going to dry out, right? That basically this cardboard is a mulch, right? It'll prevent evaporation from the soil, right? It'll function as a mulch. It'll function just fine, right? And then it'll all get eaten by the worms and so on. Any weeds I find, I just throw them on top of the cardboard, as I go, right? You just add stuff to it, right? Maybe in August or July, if my lawn gets, if your lawn gets really high, you can't really use a mulching blade. Sometimes you got to use a bag if the lawn's too high when you mow it. So I'll put the bag on and I'll just throw the grass clippings on top of the paper. Sure, grass clippings have weed seeds, but the soil's full of weeds anyway. It doesn't matter, right? And for those of you that are worried about the ink, having chemicals, blah, 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 in my understanding, it's not worth worrying about. I certainly don't worry about it. Just bring you in for a little closer look, right, of everything. So you can see, there's still going to be weeds that find their way up through here, right? But we've just knocked away so many of them so quickly, right? And I might want to add a few more things to weight. I got this wood here just to hold the paper down from blowing away. And as it gets rained on and stuff like that, it sort of molds almost like paper mache into place, right? It'll just sort of stick to the ground, right? But that's, plants can't live without sunlight. Take away the sunlight, they die. It's a simple equation. So anyway, I hope you found that video interesting. That's how I do it. That's an easy way to do it. Doesn't take long. Hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, guess what? I've started a newsletter at maritimegardening.substack.com. I'll be putting out one article a week. That's 52 articles a year. The articles expand on ideas that I mention on my videos and podcasts. And every article has a read aloud option, so you can just listen to me read it if you're busy doing something else. You can subscribe for $30 a year or try it for $5 a month and see what you think. It's a great way to help support everything I'm doing here. But hey, there's also free content too, so if you just want to read the free stuff, that's fine too. As always, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.